talking about Chicago, I put Kanye on a battle.
We've been criminalized because of our race, because of our gender, because of our character, because of our community.
Parties on top of
Everybody getting his money's up there nice.
Everybody getting his dance. Is the Pope a Catholic?
What happens when a rap battle turns into a debate about black identity? Recently, scholar and cultural critic Michael Eric Dyson argued that Kendrick Lamar crossed the line in his lyrical battle with Drake, suggesting Lamar unfairly questioned Drake's blackness and abandoned the moral seriousness of his art. But that critique raises a deeper question. Is Dyson reading Kendrick Lamar, or is he misreading hip-hop itself? Because when we step back and place this moment inside its historical, cultural, and intellectual context, Dyson himself has engaged in far more brutal public battles with high stakes far higher than a rap feud. To understand this debate, we have to start with something fundamental. Rap battles are not random insults. They're part of a long African-American tradition of competitive verbal performance. Think about the dozens. Think about signifying. Think about blues boasting. Think about Muhammad Ali standing in front of the world saying, "I am the greatest." In these traditions, verbal combat is not simply disrespect, it's performance. Hip-hop inherited this culture of lyrical competition. From KRS-One and MC Shan to Nas and Jay-Z to Pusha T and Drake, rap battles have always been spaces where artists test their skill, creativity, and dominance. So when Kendrick Lamar says, "blank the big three, it's just big me," that line is not just a philosophical argument, it's a competitive declaration. To judge those lyrics as though they were moral doctrine is to misunderstand the cultural grammar of hip-hop itself. Now there's another problem with Dyson's critique. It focuses heavily on Kendrick Lamar while largely ignoring Drake's own attacks. During the battle, Drake accused Lamar of abusing his partner, Whitney Alford, and questioned the paternity of Lamar's children. Those accusations were deeply personal and potentially defamatory. Yet, Dyson directs most of his moral concern towards Lamar's responses rather than the claims that provoked them. Even more revealing is Drake's line, "You rapping like you're trying to get the slaves free." That lyric mocks Lamar's socially conscious style, suggesting that politically engaged rap is somehow outdated or performative. For an artist whose work from To Pimp a Butterfly to Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers wrestles directly with black history, trauma, and liberation, that line carries cultural weight. But Dyson spends far less time interrogating that rhetoric. And that imbalance matters because rap battles are reciprocal by design. Every line is a part of a chain of escalation. Dyson also argues that Lamar unfairly questions Drake's blackness. But that critique ignores something important. Drake himself has described his relationship to black identity as something he associates with. Yet he never hesitates to fully claim his Jewish identity. So Lamar's critique is not inventing a racial boundary. It is responding to a pattern of selective identification. Dyson compounds the problem by misreading Lamar's reference to being a Hebrew Israelite on Kendrick Lamar's album, Damn. In the song, Lamar recounts a conversation with his cousin Carl Duckworth, who tells him, quote, "Know my worth, Deuteronomy said we all been cursed." Carl himself is connected to the movement, but Lamar is not presenting a declaration of faith. The reference appears only once, and only as a part of a conversation. It's a moment of wrestling with identity, not a proclamation. And that matters because Damn is an album built around contradiction, pride and humility, wickedness and weakness, sin and redemption. The album moves forwards and backward, exploring competing moral possibilities. It doesn't land neatly on one ideological position. To treat that lyric as a fixed belief is to flatten the album's entire conceptual structure. But the deepest contradiction in Dyson's critique appears when we remember his own history. You see, in 2015, Dyson published a 30,000-word essay in the New Republic attacking his former mentor, Cornel West. 30,000 words! The piece accused West of intellectual decline, hypocrisy, narcissism, and the betrayal of the black prophetic tradition. Dyson even compared West to a washed-up prize fighter whose greatest opponent was, quote, "the ghost of a self that spits at him from his own mirror." In other words, Dyson dropped a 30,000-word diss track. And unlike a rap battle, the stakes were not entertainment. The dispute centered on West's criticism of President Barack Obama. You see, West had condemned Obama's drone warfare program, which expanded targeted killings abroad. He also criticized Obama's immigration enforcement policies, which deported millions. Dyson, by contrast, defended Obama, arguing West's critique was excessive and unfair. So the irony becomes impossible to ignore. Dyson condemns Kendrick Lamar for participating in a lyrical battle while having authored one of the most brutal intellectual takedowns in modern public discourse. You see, if sharp rhetoric disqualifies Lamar from moral seriousness, then what does a 30,000-word public excoriation of your former mentor say about Dyson? Black art has not only endured because it was endlessly critiqued, but because generation after generation of aesthetes chose to create, nurture, and celebrate beauty in the face of a world determined to misunderstand it. And when you place all of this in its historical context, something becomes clear. The rap battle between Kendrick Lamar and Drake isn't just a celebrity drama. It's a part of a much older tradition, a tradition rooted in African-American culture where words are sharpened, performed, exaggerated, and sometimes weaponized. The dozens, tall tales, staggerly, blues boasting, street corner ciphers, competitive verbal performance has long been a way Black communities test wit, intellect, creativity, and cultural authority. Sometimes it's playful, sometimes it's brutal, but it's rarely meaningless. Even intellectual disputes can fall into this tradition. Michael Eric Dyson versus Cornel West, that's a form of verbal jousting too. Scholars instead of MCs, footnotes instead of punchlines, but the spirit of rhetorical combat, the clash of ego, intellect, and performance is strikingly familiar. And if we're being honest, even this video participates in that tradition, because Black culture has always produced spaces where ideas are tested publicly, loudly, creatively, and sometimes beautifully, and sometimes messily. That's the paradox. It's a beautiful tradition. And yes, sometimes it can be an ugly one too. But the answer isn't to throw away the whole tradition. The answer is to recognize what makes it powerful. The creativity, the performance, the cultural storytelling, the intellectual play, because at its best, this tradition reminds us something important. Words matter. And the way Black communities have used words and language to critique, perform, challenge, and entertain itself is an art form. One that continues to evolve, from the front porch to the stage, to the studio, to the timeline. I'm Dr. Kamasi Hill, and this has been a Griot's History Deep Dives and B-Sides, where the untold becomes the unforgettable.